And what we're trying to do is say, let's step back and look at these things in the wider context of what's needed for the city and also what we can afford as a city. And it just looked to us like on the face of it that if you look at the situation today and going forward, these garages don't look like a very cost-effective way to address the parking issue. And they are also strategically not aligned with where we want to go as a city in terms of sustainability, mobility, density, all of these trends.
Comp plan at all. So
Yeah,
two major planning documents seemingly ignored to build garages we can't afford. And so just couldn't understand the decisions that were happening there.
So I think that's basically we're saying. Let's hold a second here. I mean, the challenge of sustainability, the challenge of density, the challenge of housing, and everything means that we need to look at the big picture when we do these kind of projects, and not just inherit something from 7 years ago that was pushed and had a lot of momentum, and just go in blindly to basically throw good money after bad, so to speak. The situation has changed a lot, I think, in the last 7 years, or when these things were perhaps penciled out. And we need to just take a very careful look on where we're putting our resources as a city, because these could very well be white elephants in the future, or take us down a path that means we have to neglect things that could have solved this problem, but also had many other community benefits. So we were very concerned to see the parking garages approved, and just at the outrageous costs for construction these days. So it's almost like everything is wrong if you look at the situation for these parking garages right now, and timing above all, since we're in this big crunch for funding. And I think there are a lot of good ideas that we haven't really kind of explored and given some time.
What do you think we should have done
to impact this? Well, I think the TMA has shown good progress with very minimal funding and a minimal amount of time in place, and it's only focused on the downtown area. So we haven't tried the same in California Avenue area. We're putting on a lot of bike ped amenities that should help the situation. We've got a lot of technologies changing in terms of ride sharing, shuttle buses. I forwarded an article on autonomous shuttles that are being pilot tested today.
Yeah.
So this stuff is coming, I think, a lot faster than we think it is.
So the garage might end up being empty.
Well,
empty, but it actually will, because the studies show that you only have 2-hour hump at lunchtime that you're trying to correct with this garage. So the majority of the time, it is going to be empty.
Yeah, that was kind of glaring too. Is this very narrow time band? I mean, you're talking about weekday lunch periods of 2 hours. So you're really talking about 10 hours during the week where you've got this crunch. When you look at the cost of, I calculated $127,000 per parking space.
Yeah, very outrageous.
Yeah.
What could you do with that?
A whole lot of other things.
In terms of shuttle and
free shuttles from
free Ubers,
industrial park, free Ubers,
Yeah.
The free bike share program is going to show up within months probably now. They already have free electric bike programs in San Jose and San Francisco and San Mateo. And so these are electric bikes. I think the people at the industrial park and Stamp Research Park love to jump on a bike and come downtown. And so that's not going to cost anything. And so there's a whole host of solutions that weren't even looked at.
Yeah, I think those, the other idea here is flexibility. I mean, there's rapid change going on. I mean, the parking structure is a commitment for 50 years of concrete stuck, right? I mean, there's nothing else you can do with that. If we start incrementally with programs that are...
I don't know if you guys followed the discussion on this. Were you guys at the meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay. But, I mean, I agree with you on that in terms of...
flexibility of where you want to go with
Well,
your funding.
the flexibility of the structure, because right now the structure is like all ramp, right? It's one gigantic ramp, so all the floors are tilted, right?
Yeah,
all the way up.
right.
And you're right, that can only be a garage, unless there's another use where you can have slanted floors, right?
Yeah. Maybe a skateboard park.
Maybe a skateboard park. A gigantic
but a
skateboard
very
park.
expensive skateboard park.
Yeah. So, I mean, my suggestion at the council meeting was to use mechanical lifts. Because with mechanical lifts, you could disassemble it, right? It's just first of all, you could put them there really, really quickly, and if the need changes, you could disassemble it and sell it off to someone else. Or put it somewhere else in the city that's needed.
Yeah, and you could potentially adjust the size.
You could just
actually
decide, yeah.
You could actually start smaller than rather than
Well,
start bigger, or
I've seen-
or shrink it.
Well,
I think
the
I've seen
lift-
it.
The lift has been proven not to be effective for short-term parking.
No,
That's
not
the
short term.
problem.
This is employee parking, right? So
Right, but I mean, that's the problem we're trying to solve downtown, is lunchtime parking. Let's make no mistake.
no, that's true. But the thing is if you move all of the employee parking to a mechanical lift, because you're going to be there for 8 hours, right, or something like that, then you free up parking for everyone else. So that's the basic idea.
Sure, if you could
Right.
move, if you could
So
move those
then
cars.
we have to step back and say, the more parking we supply, it will induce demand, and this is what we want. If you build it, they will come. So let's build what we want. We don't want cars downtown. We want people to buy stuff. We want
Yeah.
people to have lunch and everything. We don't want cars. We want the people. So
Yeah.
how do we get the people there? If you build it for cars, you'll get cars. If you build it for bike ped, you get bike ped. If you build shuttles, you get shuttles.
Mhm.
So let's think about that instead of saying, let's house this parking over here and free more parking here.
Mhm.
That's a car solution.
I think also
Think in the
if
future, we
you're
don't want the cars downtown. Comp plan says that. SIP plan says that. We have to move away from those solutions.
Well,
They've been
I-
proven to induce demand.
Yeah, I was watching this video on YouTube last night or the night before. It was on Donald Shoup. You guys probably heard on the high cost of free parking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyways, he has this little video on
Yes.
YouTube that
Yeah.
he's talking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's talking about this issue, right? So definitely understand what you're saying.
Right.
The question is, what do you do in the meantime, right? Because we don't have the bike shares yet. We should have them here, but we don't, right? We should have the shuttle set up here, but we don't, right? And so the question is how to get that stuff rolling, right?
It's true.
Right.
It
Absolutely.
needs money and it needs
Yeah. And the
time.
problem is-
But a 50-year solution that we can't afford is also not the right solution.
Well-
That's not an interim. That's a permanent.
Yeah, it's going to take some time for
I
that to
think
be built.
misuse of funds for what the city can afford.
Well, I agree that a tilted floor that can only be used for a garage.
Yeah. And
It's locked in stone, right? That is
Right.
that is unfortunate.
It's also not an overnight solution. I mean, within a year, what could you do with shuttles? What could you do with
Well-
bike ped access? What could you do with transit passes? Those are much faster and
Yeah, those
more
are-
flexible programs to roll out within a year or two time frame than building a parking
Those
structure.
will come on before the structure.
If the parking structure is for employees, business, and all day parking, then make it a profitable venture. If it sells itself, if you can fund through parking fees to sit in the structure, fine. It's just a business. But don't subsidize that with public funds that are needed to have benefits for the community for something that's merely a ROI calculation for the businesses, though.